explanation. I deserved it, but it was worth it. The delay of game made no sense. It felt like Tyler wanted to assert himself into the game. That was ridiculous. So
3 games, 3 times, the same exact story. Caitlin Clark showing up when the Indiana Fever need her the absolute most, delivering what this team requires to survive, and walking out of the building with a win that honestly should have been much more comfortable than it ended up being. That is what we are talking about today. Because once again, Caitlin Clark did exactly what Caitlin Clark does. And once again, a whole lot of other things went sideways around her. And once again, the Indiana Fever barely held on to secure a victory that a contender-level team should have wrapped up in the 3rd quarter. Let's get into it. Before we go any further though, if you're new to this channel and you're looking for someone who is actually going to call this stuff like it is, instead of just handing out participation trophies every time the Fever win a game.
Out there that was shooting every time they touched the damn ball. Monique Billings was balling today. Caitlin Clark didn't have the ball in her hands to get Monique Billings shots because Kelsey Mitchell was busy out there jacking up shots nonstop. Why are you not addressing Kelsey Mitchell?
From happening, is that just the way the game's being called?
I mean, some of it, but we've got to do a better job collectively as a team. I mean, there were
all we can hope is that this team keep losing and it brings change quickly. That's all we can hope.
Chance, and our offense stalled at times.
Coach Caitlin picking up on the foul thing. The 5th foul on Caitlin should have come out with about 6.
Go ahead and subscribe right now. Hit that bell too. Because we are going to be here all season, breaking this down honestly. Game after game, no spin, no fluff, just real analysis. All right, now let's talk about what actually happened in that Connecticut Sun game, and more importantly, why Stephanie White's post-game face told a completely different story than the final score did. Indiana Fever walked into that matchup as the team everybody assumed would handle their business without much drama. The Connecticut Sun are not a playoff powerhouse right now. They are not a team that should be pushing the Indiana Fever to the absolute edge of their limits. And yet there they were, making it a battle, making it uncomfortable, making the Fever fight for every single possession down the stretch. The Fever won. They got the W. But how they got there reveals something important about where this team actually is versus where people want to believe they are. Caitlin Clark was a problem all night long. 10 of 17 from the floor, 5 of 10 from deep, 25 points, 5 assists, and total control over this basketball game every single time Indiana desperately needed a bucket. That is an elite individual performance against a defense that Clark herself acknowledged was long, athletic, and applying constant pressure. Doesn't matter. Clark made plays. Clark created shots. Clark kept this team breathing. And if you are somehow still not convinced that she is the best player operating in this league right now, I genuinely do not know what sport you have been watching. But here is the thing. Here is the real conversation happening today. Because it is not just about what Clark did on the court. It is about what happened in that post-game press conference. It is about the energy coming from the coaching staff when the cameras were rolling. It is about Stephanie White standing up there after securing a 3rd consecutive win and carrying the energy of someone who just found out their car has a slow leak. She is not celebrating. She is not exhaling. She is already in the next problem. And that tells you everything. Now, some of you are going to say she is being professional. Some of you are going to say that is what good coaches do. And you are right that good coaches think beyond the scoreboard. But there is a difference between measured professionalism and the specific kind of dissatisfaction that was readable in that room. Stephanie White knows what we know. She sees what we see on film. She knows this team keeps building leads and then watching opponents crawl back into games that should already be over. She knows about the turnovers that flip momentum in 8 seconds. She knows about the offensive droughts that last entire stretches of the 2nd and 3rd quarter. She knows this team is winning because of Caitlin Clark, not because the problems around Clark have been fixed. And a head coach who is actually trying to build something cannot be satisfied by that, even when the win column keeps going up. So when Stephanie White stands at that podium looking like she is already watching film in her head, Understand that her instincts are correct. She is right to feel the way she feels. The win?
Do, but I think that you just have to have a feel for the game. Sometimes the energy is low, so you have to go out there and kind of be the aggressor and bring the energy up. But when they already have it, you just gotta, slide right in and don't let the game fall out or fall.
Is real. The issues are also real. And she has to hold both of those things at the same time every single game night. Let's talk about what those issues look like in real time, because the details matter here. Aaliyah Boston finished with 13 points and 11 rebounds. A lot of casual observers will see those numbers and move right along. Do not do that. Aaliyah Boston was 5 of 13 from the field, and she missed an alarming number of shots from point-blank range around the basket. Layup after layup after layup, hitting the back of the rim, rattling out, missing entirely. And the part that should genuinely bother every single Indiana Fever fan is that those were not contested attempts. Those were not difficult angles. Caitlin Clark was threading passes right into Boston's hands in situations where any player at this level is supposed to finish. Clark's assist total should have been 12 or 13 based on the reads she was making and the passes she was delivering. The official box score says 5. The gap between those two numbers is missed layups. That is the unfiltered truth. And Stephanie White absolutely knows it because she watched the same film. Think about what that means for the coaching staff on a game-to-game basis. You draw up the sets. You put your people in the right spots. Your point guard is threading needles and putting teammates in position to score. And the ball keeps finding the rim instead of the net. That is not a Clark problem. That is a finishing problem. And it is not a one-night anomaly. It is a pattern showing up across multiple games now. When you are trying to genuinely build toward a championship, patterns tell you more than any individual game result ever will. Then there is Kelsey Mitchell. 6 of 15 from the floor, 2 of 9 from three-point range. Kelsey Mitchell is a weapon when she is dialed in. Everybody in this league knows that. She can absolutely take over a basketball game when everything is clicking. But 2 of 9 from beyond the arc tells a specific story. There were stretches in this game where the decision appeared to have been made before the ball even left her hands. The dribble, the pull, the contested look, off the bounce. And when the shot is not there at that rate, the adjustment has to happen faster than it was happening. Attack the rim at a different angle. Create an advantage for somebody else on the floor. Recognize the game flow and adapt. That is the level of shot selection this team needs if they are going to be relevant in late October. And right now, it is not consistently there. Stephanie White sees it. That is another reason the post-game energy looks the way it does. Now here is where this story gets another layer added to it. Because it was not just the on-court execution that was floating around in that press conference room. A reporter raised the subject of what they described as a possible sideline interaction. Something about reports, something about division within the team. And the response was fascinating to watch in real time. Clark herself pushed back immediately. She looked almost genuinely confused or did a masterful job of projecting it. She pointed to 3 straight wins. She made it clear she was not going to validate that narrative publicly. And that is the smart play. That is exactly what you say in front of a room full of cameras and microphones. But the fact that those questions are being asked at all means something is generating them somewhere. Whether that is speculation or something with more substance behind it, it is now part of the public conversation surrounding this team. And when you are a head coach trying to protect culture and maintain genuine locker room unity, that is one more item on an already crowded list of things to manage. Stephanie White is juggling a lot right now, and I think that is why her post-game body language consistently communicates something different than her words. She understands what Caitlin Clark means for this franchise. She also understands that one player, regardless of how extraordinary that player is, cannot be the complete answer every single night across an entire season and into a playoff run. The margin shrinks as the opponents get better. The Washington Mystics are not the team that ends Indiana's season if they advance deep into the bracket. The Chicago Sky is not the team that exposes their problems at the highest level. The Connecticut Sun pushed them last night, and the Sun are not a championship-level threat right now. Whatever problems keep showing up against these opponents will be magnified significantly against genuinely elite competition. That is the context behind the coaching staff's energy in that building after the final buzzer. Now credit where it is absolutely due. Sophie Cunningham. Because when this game needed somebody to step up and completely alter the energy in the arena, Sophie Cunningham walked into that fourth quarter and delivered. She went on an 11-0 run that essentially decided the game before the Connecticut Sun could mount one final push. She knocked down shots. She brought physical aggression. She changed the tempo. She closed the door at exactly the moment Indiana needed it shut. And that fourth quarter performance was the kind of contribution that shifts a team's identity when it happens consistently. Sophie Cunningham stayed ready when her name wasn't being called. She came in and made every minute count. Her post-game interview said as much. She talked about controlling what you can control, about being a professional regardless of the situation, and about knowing your number can come up at any moment. That is championship mentality in a role player. That is real depth. And the connection between Cunningham and Clark in those closing minutes was visible to anyone watching. Clark herself acknowledged it after the game. She talked about Sophie bringing aggressiveness when the energy needed to come up, about reading the moment and responding to it. That is a player who understands basketball at a different frequency than most. And she brings that understanding into how she reads her teammates and how she communicates on the floor in real time. Here is the wider picture, though. 3 straight wins. 3 straight games where the Indiana Fever needed a Caitlin Clark masterpiece to survive. 3 straight opponents who were not supposed to make it this difficult, and who all made it this difficult anyway. The Washington Mystics game, the Chicago Sky game, the Connecticut Sun game. Each one should have been a comfortable Fever victory by the fourth quarter. Each one turned into a grind. Each one required Clark to be exceptional in the clutch just to get across the finish line. That is a trend. And trends reveal identity. Right now, the identity of this Indiana Fever team includes both genuine brilliance and real fragility. Until the fragility gets addressed, Stephanie White is going to keep standing at that podium with the energy of someone who just won a battle, but knows the war requires a lot more. There was also the technical foul situation late in the game. Clark picked up a technical for retrieving the ball after it went off her foot near the scorer's table. She said the delay of game call made no sense. She called it a referee asserting himself into a moment that did not require his involvement. She was direct about it. She took accountability for her own reaction while being equally direct that the initial call was unnecessary. That level of clarity and self-awareness is a form of leadership. She is not hiding behind anything. She calls things as she sees them, and she does it without deflecting responsibility for her part in what happened. Caitlin Clark also noted after the game that she felt Indiana was sometimes initiating their offense too high on the floor, which meant they were not generating the advantages they needed early in their half-court sets. That is a remarkably self-aware post-game observation from a second-year player who just scored 25 points. She is watching film in her head while she is still playing the game. She identified the Connecticut Sun's tendencies from what she saw in preparation, broke down how their defensive pressure was being applied, and pinpointed what Indiana could have done better collectively. That is not just talent. That is a player who studies the game at a different level entirely. Indiana Fever are winning. The streak is real. Caitlin Clark is doing things that nobody else in this league is doing right now. Sophie Cunningham proved that she belongs in meaningful minutes when the game is on the line. Those are legitimate positives. But Stephanie White's post-game energy after the Connecticut Sun game is the most honest signal this team is sending. A coach who wins and relaxes is comfortable. A coach who wins and immediately starts solving problems is hungry and honest with herself about the work still ahead. The question for this Fever squad going forward is whether the players surrounding Caitlin Clark can start providing answers that do not require Clark to carry the entire weight alone? Can Aaliyah Boston become automatic around the basket the way her size and athleticism suggest she should be? Can Kelsey Mitchell develop the kind of shot selection that makes a defense respect every possession and not just every other one? Can this team hold a lead without letting it evaporate and forcing a comeback narrative in the fourth quarter every single game? Those are the questions Stephanie White is sitting with after every win right now. And they are the questions this fan base should be sitting with too, instead of just celebrating the record. Caitlin Clark saved this team again. Sophie Cunningham helped finish the job. And Stephanie White is still standing at that podium every night, trying to figure out how to build a team that is genuinely worthy of what their best player is giving them on a nightly basis. That is where the Indiana Fever actually are right now. Not where social media says they are. Not where the casual highlights say they are. Right here, in this honest conversation between a head coach's expression and the problems the box score reveals underneath the final score. If you want to keep getting this kind of real breakdown every time Indiana takes the floor, subscribe right now and stay with us. We are following this Fever season all the way through, and there is a lot more story still left to tell.